The Vatican once controlled the destinies of empires through paper, seals, and the fear of God. Today, he governs billions through faith, word, and tradition. And in the year 4800, this tiny territory will become the most powerful spiritual server of mankind. Not by country. Not by the church. A system that influences the thinking of a civilization. And now we will go all the way, from the dark archives under the cathedral to the digital temples outside the earth. The Vatican in 1900 is not a museum or a tourist postcard, it is the center of global faith management, a factory of meanings and the main spiritual headquarters of the planet long before the advent of the internet and satellites. A small state squeezed by Rome controls what no empire can buy, the conscience of millions. Then the Pope is not just a man in white, but a living instance of truth. His word is stronger than borders, armies, and currencies. At the beginning of the 20th century, the Vatican looked like a closed operating system. Archives were hidden from the world, access to knowledge was limited, and truth was not a matter of discussion, but dogma. Thousands of halls, hundreds of kilometers of shelves, manuscripts, texts, letters, manuscripts with traces of age, old power over minds, all this works as a single mechanism that creates reality for half the earth. The Catholic Church defines the rules of marriage, sin, death, and redemption, and the fear of hell and the hope of heaven become the most powerful management levers of their time. The Swiss Guard is not just a guard, but a symbol of closeness. Clothes of the 16th century are not a fashion, but a declaration of continuity of power. What is valued here is not speed, but ritual, not innovation, but continuity, not openness, but mystery. Control over knowledge is equal to control over the future, and the Vatican holds this lever with an iron hand because it understands the simple truth: whoever answers the question, "Why do you live?" controls how you die. But fast forward 3,000 years, and the familiar Vatican disappears. There are no walls, no square, no papal apartments in the usual sense. In the year 4800, the Vatican is not a point on a map, but a distributed system within human civilization, a spiritual operating environment to which everything reasonable is connected. His archives no longer lie in basements, they exist in quantum repositories, mirrored throughout the solar system, accessible to any consciousness with a basic level of ethical tolerance. The entire religious history of mankind, from the Sumerian tablets to the latest exoplanetary theology, is combined into a single semantic matrix. If in the 20th century the Vatican told us what to believe in, then in the 18th century it helps us understand why faith is needed in a world where death is no longer necessary. The body is a removable media, and the personality can be archived, branched, and restarted. The priest of the future is not a figure in a cassock, but a navigator of inner worlds, an expert on identity crises, an architect of meaning for beings who have survived hundreds of years of life. His tool is not a sermon, but an interface of consciousness. His pulpit is a neural environment. His audience is not parishioners, but individuals who have lost their bearings in the super-technological reality. The Vatican of 4800 is no longer fighting science, because science has long ceased to be a threat, it has become a door. God is no longer opposed to progress, he becomes the last issue of progress. Not an anathema, but a dialogue. Not fear, but responsibility. In a world where humanity has settled into orbital stations, underwater cities, and autonomous colonies, the Vatican serves as a civilizational stabilizer. When technology erases the boundaries of personality, it restores understanding of the self. When immortality makes life mundane, it restores the value of time. When virtual paradises replace reality, it restores the weight of experience. Temples are no longer built of stone, they are formed from experience. People enter them not with their bodies, but with their minds, experiencing personal versions of the Absolute. Collected under their fears, traumas, and internal conflicts. In 1900, icons depicted God. In the 4800s, people try to model it, argue with it, look for formulas, but not control it. The Vatican is turning into a moral processor of civilization, not imposing commandments, but correcting trajectories. He doesn't pass sentences, he projects values. It doesn't block access, it adjusts understanding. Where there were walls and prohibitions before, there are now levels of awareness. Where secrecy used to work, transparency of meanings now works. Where dogmas prevailed in the 20th century, dozens of spiritual models adapted to different forms of mind, from biological to synthetic, coexist in the 18th century. And here is the main rift in time: the Vatican of the past is the power over faith, the Vatican of the future is the power over questions. One demanded submission, the other shapes thinking. One kept the truth in a safe, the other puts it on the table and offers to argue. One inspired fear of hell, the other teaches responsibility for the universe. If at the beginning of the 20th century the Vatican was a fortress, then in the year 4800 it becomes the nervous system of civilization. Not a city, not a state, not a temple, but the digital conscience of humanity, pulsating through planets, orbits and dimensions, reminding intelligent beings of the simplest and most complex things: no matter who you are, no matter what body you live in, and no matter how many times you restart, meaning is not renewed along with the shell, it has to be mine it yourself.